People are moving to the Orlando, Florida area from all over the world every single day for our beaches, our attractions, our weather, and our inexpensive living. And look, they all have beliefs that just don't align with the locals. I've lived here in the Orlando area for many years, and today I'll be sharing 10 things that you're going to need to know before moving to Deland, which is a little suburb up on the north side of Orlando, Florida. Now, these are things that nobody ever talks about, and they aren't listed in any particular order, although number 6 is one that I believe surprises a lot of people. So be sure to stick around as I'll be sharing today from a local's perspective. So let's jump right in with number 1. So we don't deal with tourists here in Deland proper. Deland is really a small, kind of a blue-collar town. Disney's Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Universal, and all the other attractions are on the south side of Orlando, an hour, maybe more away. The nearest high-rises to us here in Deland are about 30 minutes down I-4, down in Lake Mary and Sanford, and beyond that, Orlando. This area here has really smaller, lesser-known attractions like historic downtown Deland, where I am right now. We have some wonderful springs and the beaches, which are about 30 minutes over to the east. Deland is a little city of about 43,000 people, whereas Orlando has 325,000 people, about 8 times that. Now, you wouldn't even know here in Deland, if you're talking to the people, that this is a tourist destination at all. The upside is that we don't have the traffic, the noise, or the nonsense of Orlando, or although you may not believe that as you hear the trash cans coming by, etc., etc. The people in this area are very friendly. There's a sense of community. People walking by are often making eye contact. They're just friendly, they're smiling. Now, we do get snowbirds here, but I don't consider snowbirds tourists. Now, you might be wondering, what in the world is a snowbird? Well, a snowbird is someone who lives in the north and comes down to the Florida to enjoy our sunshine throughout the winters. They're usually older, they're usually friendly, and most importantly, they spend a lot of money in our economy. They buy homes here in the area, but then go back up in the north in the summer months, so they make great neighbors for 6 or maybe 8 months every single year. Next, Florida has no state income tax, which is a wonderful thing. And you may be saying, look, Chuck, I know that Florida has no income taxes already. However, what you might not know is that this area is now just below the national cost of living average, whereas we used to be way below. Florida used to be considered a very cheap place to live. But I'll take that because there's a lot here that the Deland area, that Orlando, that the entire Central Florida area has to offer. Look, it costs money to run a government. Like all these buildings. But here in Florida, government tends to be smaller than it is in other states. States like New York, California, and some other high-tax states, because there's plenty of them. So where does Florida get its money? Well, we do have a modest sales tax, but it's our property taxes. Now, we aren't high like New York or New Jersey or California, but we could still pay $4,000, $5,000, maybe $6,000 a year for a 3-2 home with just 1,500 square feet. Some areas here in the Orlando area are higher than others. So if you're moving to the Orlando area and you don't want to pay all those taxes, or maybe you don't have $1.5 million to buy a home, let us know and we can help you find an area with lower taxes or lower home prices, or for whatever for that matter. We've lived here for many years, so we know all the ins and the outs and what's good and what's not so good about the Orlando area or any of its suburbs like Deland. Next, if you're moving to Deland or Orlando and you're looking to see how long it's going to take you to get from Deland to Orlando on Google Maps, don't just believe what it says. Don't just take it for gospel truth, because where you are in Deland matters significantly. If you're up in Glenwood or over on the Lake County side of Deland, or maybe up in Daytona Park Estates versus Victoria Park, which is right next to I-4, it can make a huge difference. Also, it depends even more on the traffic, because I-4, which is the main thoroughfare between Deland and Orlando, Florida, can be a nightmare, and it backs up regularly. It doesn't back up just at rush hour either, but all hours of the day. Look, I hate I-4. It can back up at Sunday at 2 p.m. or Thursday at 10 p.m. I've been on those times when the traffic was absolutely stopped. Now, when I-4 backs up, so do all the little feeder streets around it. Now, yes, the Beltway and the express lanes do help, but they're not always going to save you. Plus, using the Beltway or the express lanes, it gets very expensive. Look, there are some things about Orlando I like, although I generally say I hate Orlando, and I love Deland. But if you're thinking about moving to the Orlando area, don't just take Google Maps as gospel. Make sure you have an actual address, because it can really be misleading. It's also important to note that that it's not just I-4 in Orlando. Even Deland's traffic is getting bad right here. Just this morning on the way here, I saw another roundabout here in Deland that was being built. 5 years ago, I never sat through a traffic light, but look, I do now. And these roundabouts, they're popping up all over the place now. Are they the enemy? No, I love the roundabouts. They help, but they're a symptom of dealing with the traffic. Now, like I said earlier, some areas in Deland, or some areas in this entire area, are worse than others. So if you're moving to Deland, make sure you reach out to find out where you need to be based on your situation. Maybe you want some land in the country, or you won't be driving to Orlando, or maybe you want to be closer to the historic district, or maybe closer to the beaches. They say it's all about location, location, and location. So look, don't mess this one up. Now, although this next one is not as surprising as a couple that I'll be addressing later in this video, especially number 6, this is one that nobody seems to be talking about, and that is the lack of availability of new construction in Orlando proper. It's practically gone. It's even gone in many of the suburbs. So now if you want new construction, you're going to have to go out into further counties. Yes, there is a little bit of vacant land in Orlando and, Orange County and Seminole County, but look, it's very limited. But there's plenty of new construction up in Deland to the north. But look, I've been in new construction homes on every side of Orlando. I was in Lake County just yesterday. But look, if you want new construction, you're going to have to go to the suburbs. Deland, where I am today, has some great options. They have inexpensive new construction, luxury new construction, or 55 plus active living. There's gated and all sorts of homes being built on land, some even on the Lake County side of Deland. Some builders are giving cash back. Frankly, just about all the builders are giving cash back. They're giving interest rate buy-downs, which helps to lower your monthly payment. They're just about all paying realtor commissions, and I even know one builder that just made some massive price reductions. These incentives are why new construction is such a big deal in this current market. Again, there's plenty of land in the Deland area. I currently have a couple large parcels on the market that would be great for a new home. The next thing that you must know before moving to Deland, Florida is that although new construction can be great for financial reasons, these upgrades that are very nice are very pricey. Builders make these upgrades so nice, and they are very worth it, but they're very expensive. It's super common to spend 30 or 40% of the home's purchase price on these upgrades. Now, I get it. It's your forever home and you deserve it. You're going to be there for many, many years, and I don't want to cheat myself. Look, I'm doing the same exact thing. And it isn't every builder, and I'm not trying to vilify the builders here. They're doing a great job of selling a wonderful product. I was in some standard models yesterday, and it was absolutely amazing. This was the model in standard, and we may just have a video on this community coming up, so be sure you stick around for that. But you have all the upgrades, and then there's the HOA, because so many of these new construction homes are in homeowners associations. Some homeowners associations, they cover gates with guards, they've got pools, they've got playgrounds, walking trails, landscaping, and maintenance is covered as all of them. But look, that expense is still a real expense. Next, don't forget about lot premiums, because you want a home on the lake, or maybe you want the corner, or maybe you want the woods behind you. These are real features and they're often worth it, but still, that's an expense. So yes, there are some great incentives with new construction, but you need to be aware that these builders are going to kind of tempt you with these upgrades, some of which are very expensive. Now, we know which builders have the premium upgrades and which have better standard options. So when you call us, we'll get you with the right builder for your situation. The point here is that, if you walk into a grocery store hungry, you're going to make bad choices. And it's the same thing with a new construction home. So if you're looking for new construction, simply reach out to us and we will take care of you. Okay, number 6, the pollen and allergens can be very bad here in Florida. My wife, well, she's a wonderful lady and she struggles mightily with allergies, so it's a real thing. This mild Florida weather, this sunshine that you see, it's often rainy. It keeps everything moist. We have a diverse flora throughout the Central Florida area, and all of these things contribute to a very long allergy season. We have tree pollen. Where I live, there's a ton of oaks, which is why my wife struggles so bad. But grass pollen, and there's others. Ragweed, I'm not even sure of all of them because I just can't keep up with them. Lately, we've had this Sahara dust going on, and I've heard people complaining that that is impacting their allergies. Each year, I think it's the spring and then I think it's the fall, but I'm not really sure. It just seems to blend together, and maybe it's all year long. One website I recently read stated that Orlando was the 8th worst allergy city of 100 cities in the entire United States. Now, maybe it's worse in Deland because it's more rural areas, more trees and less pavement that they have down in Orlando. And look, I'm not certain, but the allergy issue seems to be better near the beaches. Now, I don't know if that's a real thing, so if you're a doctor or maybe you're an allergy specialist, let me know. I'm not an expert here, but when we leave Florida, these allergy things, they just seem to go away. I love the Deland area, and I doubt that I will ever leave, but this isn't something that I ever thought would be an issue when I'm living in Florida. This issue, the allergy and pollens, is related to another huge misconception about Florida, but I'll come to that one in a few minutes here. The next thing you need to know before moving to Deland, which is Orlando's top suburb, is that hurricanes are actually not a huge deal to us locals. Look, every location throughout America has its issues. Up north, it's snow and ice. In the west, it's mudslides, earthquakes, wildfires, fires, and God knows what else. Other areas, maybe it's tornadoes, or maybe it's just an area in America where there's no reason to be there aside from the fact that maybe you were born there and you have family there. The media gets paid for the drama of these hurricanes. You'll see it on the national news, and it's very dramatized, it's sensationalized. In reality, we'll have a couple actual storms that will land in our state each year. But that doesn't mean that we will see it here in Central Florida. You know, Florida's a large state. Many years we'll have none at all in the entire area. Deland and Orlando are inland probably 20, maybe 30 miles, so that's a really big deal. Although these hurricanes may be, I don't know, 100 miles across, the distance that they travel on land can be a big deal as they lose a lot of their punch. So by the time they get to Deland or Orlando, they've already lost a good bit of the trouble that they bring with them. When they do come, we're well aware because it's been on the news for a week. Everybody's talking about it. But we've been running our generators. People have been making evacuations if necessary, although that hasn't happened here in Central Florida in many years. We're cutting our trees and we're prepping for our hurricane parties. Some people are packing up and heading out of town because they don't want to deal with it, and they're taking a little mini vacation, maybe up in Georgia or maybe down in South Florida. But these hurricanes are usually overblown by the media. Now, pardon the pun there, but it just seems like they make a bigger deal of it than it often is. Now, I could be convicted of minimizing it, and I don't want to do that because they can be severe. We do have flooding. We do have downed trees. Sometimes we'll have week-long power outages in some areas throughout the Central Florida area. People are often fighting over gas, and yes, some people do die. It can be a really bad situation. It's important to note that homeowners insurance usually covers the damages from a hurricane. Now, there is a deductible, and I believe typically it's around 2%, but it can be more, that helps to offset that. So homeowners insurance covers it, and that's something that people don't often know. Are hurricanes a real concern? Yes, they can be. The underprivileged, maybe the elderly, and I'm sure there are others that it's a big deal to, but from a local's perspective, they aren't something that causes most Floridians to really lose their minds over. Next, Deland is much smaller than Orlando, but it has as much charm as anywhere else. However, Deland is anything but podunk. Deland has a Lowe's, several grocery stores, industrial centers, hospitals, and all sorts of medical centers. Stetson University is right up about a block from me here. All sorts of restaurants, and a couple McDonald's. Now, who cares about McDonald's? But the point is, there's 2 McDonald's here in Deland, so Deland is a pretty big city, even though it still maintains all its charm. The Deland area is really big on outdoor activities. Activities like the St. Johns River. Deland is a skydive capital of the world. If you're interested in jumping out of an airplane, I've done it. It's a pretty cool thing. We've got some wonderful springs here on the west side of town, plus just north and just south of us here. Cycling is big in the Deland area because we have these fantastic all-purpose trails that frankly run down from the springs, and you can connect up and run down into Orlando and coast to coast. Now, we've got arts here, we've got some theater. A minute ago we were at the Athens Theater, and a good bit of culture. Now, it's not to the degree of Orlando, but there is a good bit of it here in the Deland area as it grows. Now, speaking of growing, the traffic I mentioned before, it is getting worse. Daytona Beach is close by, just 30 minutes away, and they're kind of growing together, although there's this big swamp kind of between them. Orange City, which is just to the south of us, they have a Home Depot, another Walmart, another hospital. So between Deland and Orange City, you don't ever have to go to Orlando, but maybe once a year. Maybe you're going to see the Magic play or, some big thing like that. But there's not a lot that you're missing out on by being here in Deland. Compared to Orlando, it may be podunk, but really Deland has everything you need. Next, we've got bugs and snakes, all sorts of creepy things, some you may or may not even know about. Of course, we've got alligators and snakes. Now, we don't have iguanas or pythons yet. They haven't migrated that far north to Deland or Orlando just yet. But we have plenty of huge spiders. They can be a couple inches across. We've got cockroaches and palmetto bugs. We've got scorpions and all sorts of creepy crawlies. We've got plenty of bats, especially here in the downtown section of Deland. But what you may not be aware of is something called no-see-ums, or biting midges. These are small gnats that pop up in low wind and low light situations. I own a little short-term rental over in New Smyrna Beach, and we'll often spend the day fishing or at the beach or walking around doing active type things, and we love it. And then we'll come back, we'll get a shower, maybe we'll jump in the pool and just try to enjoy some nice quiet time with our feet in the pool in the dark of the night. Unfortunately, no-see-ums are not going to let you do that. Now, I don't know why they call them no-see-ums, because you can see them. What do? Well, they bite you, which actually hurt, but it annoys the death out of you, especially in the nicest of times. A Thermacell can help, but look, a Thermacell even is not an all-out cure. I haven't even addressed the sharks over at the beaches. New Smyrna Beach, which I was just speaking of, is the shark bite capital of the world. Now, are any of these critters reason to avoid moving to Orlando or the Deland area? No, of course they're not. But if you think that Deland or Orlando does not have these critters, then you are in for a big surprise. Next, everyone knows that Florida is the sunshine capital of the world because of our warm weather. Look, it never snows here in Central Florida. You hear of highs in the 70s and 80s, and look, it's absolutely true. In the winter months, and that's important to note, not in the summertime. In the summer, we're getting the mid-90s. As I stand here before you now, that sun is beating down on me, and we're expecting highs in the mid-90s every day this week. We'll have lows in the mid-70s, so that's better. But if you're thinking of a morning walk or a morning run to avoid the heat, well, look, it's not happening. You're gonna sweat just walking. If you're leaving work and you're walking to your car and you've got leather seats, you're going to burn. So make sure you park in the shade if that happens. Now, the heat, that's the issue. But look, the humidity is sometimes even worse than the heat itself. Sometimes it's almost hard to breathe, especially after the afternoon thunderstorms, which the afternoon thunderstorms bring all sorts of lightning. So if I'm going fishing, I plan. If I'm going to the beach, I plan. When I was out on the water this last weekend, I was home with the boat cleaned by 11:30 in the morning. Now, it's true that so many homes have swimming pool in our area, and our air conditioning systems are humming away day and night. So the heat is beatable, but people don't come to Florida to sit inside their homes. We're here because we like the outside. There's so much to do here. So look, I've ranted long enough about the heat, but did you know that it freezes here in the Orlando area? Well, it does, especially in the northern areas like Deland. It can freeze several times each year here. And when that happens, I'll be outside prepping for it. I'll be trying to cover up my crotons, my citrus trees, and everything else. A couple years ago, I didn't cover up over here at New Smyrna Beach, and I lost $1,000 in landscaping. Now, is it every year? No. Some years it won't freeze at all, and down south, closer to Orlando, it's not a thing, but freezing does happen here, and I don't know if the freeze is worse or the heat is worse. No, the heat is definitely worse. If you're thinking of moving to the Orlando area and you want more details about daily life, or if you want to buy a home and you want the truth about where you should be, or maybe you want the right builder, simply give us a shout. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.